Hi, everyone. Am I starting? Yes, I am. It's 11 o'clock. Welcome, everyone. From near and far, it's either good morning or good afternoon, I suppose, for some people. And my name is Betty Ann Howard, and I am the Donor Motivation Program Plan Giving Consultant for the Kingston and Ottawa region. Excuse me. And I started doing that about a year ago. And 5 years ago, I actually joined CAGP because my good friend Ryan Fraser said, as a financial advisor, if I'm serious about getting involved in the charitable and not-for-profit sector, I needed to become a member of CAGP. And I'm so glad I did because I have learned so much and it's been such an incredible experience. And I have been passionate about philanthropy and plan giving and legacy for a very long time now. And so I'm so happy to be able to share this campfire chat with you. So I would like to introduce you to to Al Roberts, CFRE, who is the general manager for the Alma General Hospital Fairview Manor Foundation. And one of the things that I find so very unique about Elmont Hospital Foundation and Fairview Manor is the fact that you actually have a long-term care facility that's attached to the hospital. Because I think if I had to go into a long-term care facility, I'd like to be right next to a hospital in my community. And for those of you who aren't aware, Elmont is a beautiful, somewhat small community. So we'll be talking about the donor attraction strategies for 2021, and especially focused on smaller shops, as we say. So I met Al about a year ago when we started preparing for and planning for their fourth donor presentation. And it was going to be, as everybody knows, or most people know, it was going to be online because of the pandemic. And so we started doing planning for that, preparing for that. And since then, we've had many conversations. We've done a whole bunch of things together, including as part of Financial Planning Week, I did a series of videos and I asked Al if I could interview him, and I brought my magic wand with me and granted him 3 wishes. And Paul Nazareth was actually part of that series, as was Greg Pollock, who is the director of the Financial Advisors Association of Canada. So that was lots of fun. And then Al asked me in December if he could interview me about donating appreciated for donors about what's involved around donating appreciated securities, because as most of us know, the markets had gone up. And Al thought it was a good time. So we did this 3-minute video, and then we've decided we're going to do a whole philanthropy toolkit of videos. So Al and I have done many things together, and we have big plans for this coming year as well. So I'm very excited to have Al here. And yes, so I want to hand it over to Al so that you can say hi and let everybody know what you're drinking.
I don't. You sound like my wife. Um, uh, it goes without say, Betty Ann, that it really was love at first sight when we were able to work together. I think what you didn't say as part of your introduction is that you really have walked your talk in terms of philanthropic giving throughout your entire career. It's important to you. It's something that you're extremely committed to because of your pathway in life, and I really appreciate that and find that it comes out when you're speaking with donors, when we've done presentations and interviews. So I hope that doesn't embarrass you, but it was love at first sight. In terms of my drink, Betty Ann, because we're at a campfire and I'm fortunate to spend a lot of time at campfires, I thought what would be nice would be a lovely cup of coffee in my favorite mug. And for all you Toronto residents, the Battle of Ontario has begun, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens at the end of the season. But what I'm putting in my cup of coffee is a little bit of a magic elixir. It comes from Almont. It's made by dairy distilleries, and it's a fantastic small business story in that these folks have figured out a way to take a byproduct from the dairy industry and actually turn it into a very high grade type of vodka. And from that vodka, they've been making different kinds of liqueurs and making really terrific vodka. And they've also gone into this cream liqueur. So I'll be putting a little bit of that cream liqueur in my coffee, even though it's 11 a.m. You know, this is a special occasion, Betty Ann. So I thought I'd have this special occasion.
That's great, Al. Thanks. And at the risk of appearing boring, this is what I'm drinking. And so yes, this is water. It comes from our well. I live out in the country. And one of the things I forgot to mention is I've done everything I can to make sure my internet connection's good. If something should happen to my connection, Al, you know me well enough. You can just keep asking the questions and answering them.
Sure.
We'll be fine. The reason why I chose water is because water sustains us. I'm all about symbolism and metaphors in the same way that plan gifts sustain us. And I'm not sure I held it up there long enough, but the other thing about imagining what this year, donor attraction strategies for 2021, I think we have to remind ourselves that mindset is key. And so with that glass, I measured it out exactly before I had a sip of it. And the question is the glass half full or is the glass half empty? And I think that with the challenges of last year, it really behooves us to find ways to look and seek out the opportunities and create new models for philanthropy. And I think a big part of being able to do that is absolutely related to us having meaningful conversations with each other. So that's another element of what I really appreciate, including the conversations that I have with many of you who are on this call. So Elle, why don't we start with the question of what do you see as being the opportunities, the challenges, and how might we address those coming into 2021?
I mean, in terms of opportunities, oftentimes when we have a major challenge, I think it does force us to really, look at how we've been doing things over the years, or, in terms of my career, I've been at this a long time, but certainly this kind of challenge really forces you to look outside and think about how else can we do this? What is the most important thing that we do? And how can we continue doing that? And so certainly, I love what I do because it allows me the opportunity to be interacting with people, on an ongoing basis. And so figuring out different ways to be able to continue to do that, even though I'm not out speaking at service clubs, even though I'm not going to, donor meetings in the afternoon or in the evening or during the day or at lunch, or, how can we continue to have those meaningful conversations has really been both a challenge, but also an opportunity because, I think our donors are missing those conversations as well. I think that they come to our organizations because they believe strongly in them and they want to be part of those conversations. And so oftentimes it's like when you're at something and you're there because you want to network. You're standing there and you're thinking to yourself, I should be talking to somebody. Well, the good thing is everybody is thinking the same thing. And so it makes it a lot easier to begin those conversations because people are craving that kind of social interaction or professional interaction as well. So, turning it, as you have said, Betty Ann, the glass is half full. It's not half empty. How can we, find opportunities to do that? And certainly continuing the work that we've done with the Donor Motivation Program has been super important.
Yes, absolutely. And, one of the things that really stood out for me around your initiatives, Al, is that you make a point of including your community. So, would you care to talk about because you held an online gala, and I know that other charities were thinking about that and had tried that out. And I'm not sure that all of the other charities took the extra steps that you did in order to say to the community, we're all in this together.
Yeah, I mean, most people probably don't know Elmont, but you can think of any small, beautiful town in Ontario, and it has a main street, and that main street is populated with lots of really beautiful small businesses, many of which are restaurants. And so, we count on those small businesses on an ongoing basis to support the hospital, and it's in their best interest because it is their hospital, but they are our businesses. So one of my colleagues put together a really terrific event. We called it our virtual gala, and we sold tickets for $150, and the evening included a dinner which was delivered to your home by volunteers. And that dinner was packaged in these gorgeous bags that we put together. And we went with all cold plates. So there was no concern about will it arrive hot, etc. But a couple of our local restaurants worked with us and worked with local produce people to put together, each of them put together 3 plates of tapas and a fabulous dessert. And we included, some local beverages, and we included candlesticks and napkins and some draw prizes. We had an online auction. So it was a beautiful dinner all in itself, but we also are blessed in Almont to have some of the most incredible musicians and entertainers. So we worked with them to put together a video, and that video was on YouTube, but you had to have a code in order to access it. So all of our dinner guests had an opportunity to watch that video. I mean, some of the music, we had the principal violinist from the Thunder Bay Symphony Orchestra, who happens to be from Almont originally. We had Tracy Brown and Randall Prescott. We had Kelly Prescott, some musicians that are really world-class musicians, and people got an opportunity to enjoy them while they were having their dinner. And then we integrated into the video we produced with all those musicians, some really not hard sell, but some messages around why supporting the hospital is so important. The whole concept that people still don't get, that, the Ontario government funds the operation of hospitals, but doesn't provide funding for new or capital replacement equipment. So we integrated those kinds of messages. And we also had some celebrity power like Wayne Rostad, thank our sponsors, etc. So in terms of the donor pyramid, we probably attracted, out of the 100 people that participated, we probably attracted 25 new supporters to the organization through the marketing we did with that event. But that's important for the next level of conversation, and the next level, and the next level, as you well know. So we were very pleased with the outcome, and are looking at doing another one this year, and doing a trivia night as well. So
Fun, fun. And I think on this note of collaboration, that's one of the other things that I love about the donor motivation program, is because I can talk to other consultants, plan giving consultants across Canada, to see who's doing what as we continue to evolve within around the best way to attract donors to the presentations and so on. And in addition to that, because I want to get to something specific that you and I talked about, and recently I was talking to a couple of, I think, let me get my point here, which is that there are opportunities for collaboration between charities as well. So just recently, I connected to charities who have very similar values very similar objectives for a swim program where the person I was talking to, she said, I would love to do fundraising for this charity because it would be a great collaborative effort. And I also want to say, as a result of being on the executive for the Ottawa chapter of CAGP, I've had an opportunity to visit a lot of different charities in the Ottawa area. And just recently, you and I talked about an idea around attracting new donors that I actually borrowed. Mitch Miller, if you're on the call at Hillel Lodge, I borrowed his idea and I shared it with Al. And I said, what do you think about this? What might we be able to do? Hi, Mitch. So would you care to comment about the conversation you and I had about what might be possible in light of what I've learned from Mitch?
Absolutely, it was a absolutely terrific idea. So as you mentioned at the beginning, Betty Ann, we're fortunate. Alma General Hospital is a 52-bed community hospital, has emergency and obstetrics and all those kinds of things. Within the same campus, we have the Fairview Manor, which is a 112-bed long-term care facility, and uh, there are some amazing synergies as a result of having those two organizations housed within the same organization, same leadership team, same foundation supporting both of them. So you were talking to me about the idea of involving children in making messages for some of the residents of Fairview Manor, and also interviewing those residents. Each one of those residents represents an incredible life story, and so often we don't remember all the layers that a person has in terms of where they've been and where they've got to in their lives. And right now, to have children have the opportunity to via FaceTime or Skype or whatever it happens to be, and many of the residents are using those tools to stay connected with their family, etc. Touch wood, everybody touch wood. We have not had any COVID within Fairview Manor. Almont, of course, did have a lot of tragedy in terms of Almont Country Haven, but Fairview Manor has remained unscathed, thanks to being able to do things like FaceTime and Facebook with relatives and that. So I think that's a beautiful idea. And you were telling me how Mitch had integrated it into Hillel Lodge, and I think it's something we definitely can do here in Almont to involve some of the school kids in the lives of our residents.
Great. Yeah. And so once again, I thank everybody who's on this webinar who share their ideas with us, because then it's the synergy that ends up happening around being able to have, it's like 1 + 1 = 5 or 10 or something like that, which is wonderful. And so one of the things that we've talked about, Al and I have talked about, is I call the people who have not yet even thought about giving the pre-contemplators. And that the question is, how do we engage people who haven't even thought about gifts, just to get them involved with your charity, with your not-for-profit. And that's certainly some of the context that we had that conversation about. And Al and I are going to continue to talk about that, ways to get families involved and how we might be able to turn it into a contest or something like that. So so, as I said, we're going to continue to talk about how do we, as you explained about the pyramid and with your gala, that you attracted a number of people who are now interested or have actually become donors, which is fantastic.
The big challenge is to how do you have an opportunity to have those conversations, and so those two vehicles provide you with the introduction at least. And once you have that introduction, then you can begin having conversations of all kinds around the hospital, the manor, the various interests that the supporter might have in terms of philanthropy or their charitable giving or being involved, so yeah, no, it's a perfect way to try and begin those conversations.
Yes, and I was just listening to a podcast the other day, and the speaker was talking about how we really need to focus on causes rather than the specific charity itself or the specific fan. Like and so I found it interesting because the example on this podcast was because the interviewer was saying cancer is, people think in terms of cancer, think about research. What else might people be able to do when you think about it as a cause from a health point of view, from a healthy community point of view? And the speaker said, going to Ronald McDonald House and cooking a meal and being part of supporting people who are going through with their child needing to have surgery. And I actually have put some charitable giving life insurance policies in place with my clients because they wanted to magnify their gift to say thanks for the opportunity they had in order to stay at Ronald McDonald House when their baby actually was having surgery. So as you're saying, Al, and as we say, it's the conversations that matter. And I think that it's not like a one-off conversation. And so if you, and what I mean as a financial advisor as a one-off conversation is asking our clients, oh, have you thought about a gift in your will, or have you thought about how you might like to do this? And oftentimes it leads to a no answer, which leads nowhere. And I think we have to find other ways to frame the questions in order to plant the seeds and continue to water those seeds. Any thoughts or comments about that?
Well, certainly, the donor motivation programs that we did, we found highly successful in terms of, people were able to attend, and now the virtual opportunity. It's interesting how with legacy giving or talking about major gifts, etc., because there is such a sensitivity around them and they're very personal conversations for people that, being able to do them virtually where you're not necessarily sitting next to your neighbor, and even though you're not going to reveal all of your financial, but it gives you a bit more of a comfort level that you can participate in something, learn something, still make that wonderful connection that, when you're involved with the donor motivation program, people that attend have that opportunity to have a conversation with you after a complimentary conversation, which I know a lot of our participants did with both you and with your predecessor, Michael, that really helped shape some of their thinking around how they could move forward. And whether it was an immediate gift or a gift in the future, it helped them to get the information they needed to move that forward. And of course, we benefited from that in terms of building those stronger relationships.
I really like that point that you made there, Al, and it's how people frame things. It's recognizing that, and we know this from the research report that CAGP just brought out, which is people think erroneously that they can't take care of their families and make a charitable gift or donation as well. And so, and our clients come to us with preconceived notions as well. And it's an education process, and it's helping people to reframe how they're seeing things so that they and to address the barriers, if you will, because we know that a barrier is the thinking that if I leave a gift to a charity, it's going to take away from the gift for my family. And we know that's not true.
No, it's going to take away from the government. from a tax planning point of view, and I don't know about anybody else on this call, but I'm happy to pay for the great standard of living I have in Canada. But if I can pay a little bit less, that's okay with me too.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what about, and I know this is a big topic, and I know it's something that you and I are going to keep talking about. So there's two things. One, we've talked a little bit about the challenges in terms of mindset and how we help to move people forward around their thinking. And we know that when people are thinking, that we have to take the barriers away and see what impact people can have. Any other thoughts about challenges and how we might address them? And then I'll have just a quick look at, oh, we're good for time. And then any comments about a new model, like what's going to be involved in us creating a new model for philanthropy?
Well, in terms of the challenges, I mean, certainly we have found, this wouldn't be the same in all sectors, but we have found that because hospitals and long-term care are so front and center right now, it's so important. Again, use it as an opportunity. People are looking for information. And so we've really invested in making sure that the information we have, on our social media platforms, that the information we have on our website, the information that we're putting out through some of our more general marketing, and also the information that we're sending to donors on a regular basis really addresses some of the current needs and some of the future needs, because people are looking to become more engaged, and they need good critical information. I mean, one of the things that we certainly recognized from the very beginning was that people thought if they were going to be making donations, it was to fund PPE. They thought it was to fund masks and gowns and gloves and all those kinds of things. And of course, that's not the case. In the hospital is dealing with COVID, and there's a fair amount of funding that's available for that through government channels. But the hospital is still delivering 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, the same services that it always has. And people needed to be reminded of that. And they needed to remember that, the emerge is still the emerge. And yes, it's safe to go there. And yes, they're still seeing people when they, split open their hand, cutting a bagel, or all of the other things that happen. And people needed to be reminded of all of that, and that kind of funding was just as important, regardless of COVID. So it's been a great opportunity to continue to have that dialogue.
And I know I did take a look at the time, even though I told Serena that I may not. And what I thought would be a really good way to end would be to bring in, because I think that we need to be using our imagination. And for me, some of that includes some magic. Like it's about being creative. So I wanted to point out that Merlin the magician
Yeah,
is, and Al actually bought Merlin when you were what, 8 years old?
9 years old. Yeah,
9 years old in England, and when he lived in England. And I actually am currently surrounded by dragons. And the reason why so first of all, I think that dragons for me are symbolic for fiery passion, which is what I'm all about. And also they are, I like the metaphor that if we're facing a dragon, most of us would want to run away. And so I like to see it more that the dragon, if we look at the dragon as the money dragon, and it's not a good idea to run away, and it's not a good idea to try to slay the dragon, but instead, I think we have to put out our hand and say, can I have this dance? And I think that we have to find ways to dance with our money dragons, dance with our fears, find ways through collaboration and using our imagination to to continue to create a new model for philanthropy, one that is going to evolve in the same way that the world has been evolving. And I look forward to having follow-up conversations with anyone who is interested. And I'm especially looking forward, Al, to our continued conversations. I've actually, Al, at one point, I don't know what the fundraising event was, and Al was in a Pirates outfit. And I
That's right.
thought, I mean, I'm not even in Elmont. And I thought, how could I not support this endeavor? You know, so Al is always game to have some fun, which makes it really enjoyable. And I think if we're not having fun, then we really shouldn't be doing it. And
It has a
oh,
lot to do with what I put in my coffee. That makes me fun.
and so thank you everyone once again for joining us. And I'm in respect of everybody's time. It's 11:30 according to my computer. So I thank you. And I'm assuming, Serena, I can just leave the meeting and I don't mess the whole thing up. And thanks everybody for joining us. And thanks,
Thank-
Al, so much for your time.
Thanks for inviting me, Betty Ann, and thank you to everybody who participated. And you have my email if anybody wants to reach out. That's what I love about this profession. It's so collegial.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.